Good morning on this drafty Wednesday. Over the last few years, we've noticed a disheartening commoditization and mass production taking hold of a classic holiday tradition. We're talking about ugly Christmas sweaters. Call us traditionalists, but a true ugly Christmas sweater should lack any irony when it is made. Ideally, the garments makers genuinely think their unsightly design is quite lovely. Once upon a time, before ugly Christmas sweaters were a joke, that was the case. A lot of the most popular designs of the ugly Christmas sweater revolution were taken from thrift shops or an aunt or grandmother's closet, said Brian Miller, one of the authors of Ugly Christmas Sweater Party book, The Definitive Guide to Getting Your Ugly On. They weren't really intended to be funny or mass-produced, Mr. Miller said. They were just gaudy and stood out when you put them on, and other people thought, "That's hilarious." According to his research, the first large, organized ugly Christmas sweater party was at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver in 2002. About a decade ago, the trend caught on more widely. Personally, Mr. Miller favors Nordic designs from the 1970s made with high-quality wool. The mark of a good sweater, he said, is basically something you would have opened from your great-aunt as a 10-year-old and thrown a fit. Those are the ones I love now. In the search for what makes a true ugly Christmas sweater, we called a few vintage shops around town. More is more, said Joe Marcus, the owner at Starstruck Vintage Clothing in Greenwich Village. You want a designer who just kept putting stuff on it: more trees, more designs, more flowers, more stars. When selecting a sweater, he said, use your eyes and your ears. Bells are a nice touch. It's great when people can hear you walking, like a cow. Anything that looks grandma-ish, like cardigans with big old buttons, are really popular, said Ashley Perez, a manager at L Train Vintage, with locations in Brooklyn and Manhattan. If you can't find anything truly unique, make it yourself. Handmade sweaters or DIY projects where people add lights or ornaments usually add just the right touch of ugly, she said. There are a few categories, said Mick Collins, a manager at Metropolis Vintage in the East Village. Cute ugly Christmas sweaters tend to be black and have shiny decals, like ornaments, while the truly ugly sweaters tend to be red and have details that, over time, have begun to droop. At his shop, Mr. Collins keeps a selection of contest-winning ugly sweaters, which typically have bells or Santa designs that were massacred when stitched together. There are also those sweaters that are neither cute nor revolting. They're mediocre, he said. Our racks are full of them at the end of the season, and those are the really sad ones, because they're not wanted by anyone. Here's what else is happening: pull on that sweater, ugly or otherwise. While today is mostly sunny, with a high near 43, blustery winds could make it feel below freezing this morning. Afternoon hot chocolate runs will feel less whipped. The gusts stop around noon. President Trump's efforts to decrease the amount of visas given to foreign workers has tech entrepreneurs looking to relocate from New York City to Canada. New York Times: the man convicted in the 2015 murder of a New York City police officer in Queens was sentenced on Tuesday to life in prison without parole. New York Times: fighting cancer, Nisha Agarwal, New York's head of immigrant affairs, went to Washington to protest the tax plan's possible effect on medical research. New York Times: a renowned historian and longtime professor at Columbia University retired as part of the settlement of a sexual harassment lawsuit. New York Times: Sheepshead Bay's Jewish community contemplated loss and safety after a menorah led to a fire that killed 3 children and their mother. New York Times City Council approved 2 controversial bills requiring changes to interactions between police officers and those they encounter on the street. New York Times Gov. Andrew M. Cuomo vetoed legislation late Monday that would have given commuters a second free transfer on pay-per-ride Metro cards. New York Daily News: roughly 40% of adult renters in New York are living with a roommate, a recent study revealed. Curbed how a Harlem man who hid his HIV diagnosis became an advocate for those living with the virus. New York Times Today's Metropolitan Diary: sleepy strangers on a train. For a global look at what's happening, see your morning briefing. New York on Ice, Skating in the City, an exhibition exploring how the sport has evolved here since the 1800s, opens at the Museum of the City of New York in East Harlem. 10 a.m. $18 suggested admission. Children can see the Three Bears Holiday Bash, a variety show with puppetry and music, at the Swedish Cottage Marionette Theatre in Central Park. 10:30 and 11:30 a.m. $12 adults, $8 children enjoy Baroque holiday music and dance with a concert and dance program at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on the Upper East Side. 7 p.m. $65 adults, $1 children sing An Irish Christmas, a performance by the hymn and carol writers Keith and Kristen Getty, at Carnegie Hall in Midtown. 8 p.m. Tickets start at $15. Looking ahead, see Nutcracker Rouge, an adults-only burlesque fairy tale and risque rendition of the classic, at Theatre 14 in Bushwick on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Times and prices vary. Nets host Kings, 7:30 p.m. Yes. Alternate side parking remains in effect until December 25. For more events, see the New York Times' Arts and Entertainment Guide. As 2017 draws to a close, we're looking back and reflecting on the last year. It's been a tough 12 months for many, like anyone who rides the subway, but 2017 has also been a year of good news as well. Just take a look at some of the year's greatest acts of heroism. We'd like to hear about the best news you received this year. Did your daughter get into her dream school? Did you find out an old friend is moving back to the city? Or perhaps you heard your favorite restaurant is opening a new location right down the block. Tell us about your best news of 2017 by sending an email to newyorktoday@newyorktimes.com. Please include your name, age, and where you live. We may use your response in an upcoming column. New York Today is a morning roundup that is published weekdays at 6 a.m. If you don't get it in your inbox already, you can sign up to receive it by email here. For updates throughout the day, like us on Facebook. What would you like to see here to start your day? Post a comment, email us at newyorktoday@newyorktimes.com, or reach us via Twitter using number NYToday. Follow the New York Today columnists Alexandra Levine and Jonathan Wolfe on Twitter. You can find the latest New York Today at newyorktoday.com.